She don't want her backside.
I don't.
Okay, now has everyone found John chapter 6? We will start with verse 25. And when they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Jesus answered them and said, Most assuredly, I say to you, you seek me, not because you saw the signs, but because you ate of the loaves and were filled. Do not labor for the food which perishes, but for the food which endures to everlasting life, which the Son of Man will give you, because God the Father has set his seal on him. Then they said to him, What shall we do that we may work the works of God? Jesus answered and said to them, This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he sent. Therefore they said to him, What sign will you perform then, that we may see it and believe you? What work will you do? Our fathers ate the manna in the desert, as it is written, He gave them bread from heaven to eat. Then Jesus said to them, Most assuredly I say to you, Moses did not give you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Then they said to him, Lord, give us this bread always. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me, and yet do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will by no means cast out. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all he has given me I should lose nothing, but should raise it up at the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. Okay, so where did we see a proclamation there?
Bunch of places.
So there were several proclamations. So tell us a proclamation that stood out to you.
I tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Any others?
The last verse.
35. I am the bread of the life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst.
So, what we're looking for here, as we reflect back on Passover, we remember that, and we will learn more when we do a little bit more of a reenactment of a Passover. There is times where proclamations are made. Different statements are made during the Passover meal, just as Jesus is making different statements here. And in Passover, the children of Israel were looking for the death angel to pass their home so that their firstborn child could live, of their children and of their flock. So, we're using a Christian or a Christ-based proclamation as part of our studies, because we want to recognize that Jesus is the fulfillment of the Passover. So, what other proclamations did you see in that reading? Did anything else stand out to you?
proclamations and statements.
Did you notice the one where he said, where Jesus, let me find it,
32.
32.
The one who did not give you bread from heaven.
No, that's not, but that is a proclamation. The one I was looking for was, that of all he has given me, I should lose nothing, but raise it up at the last day. What is Jesus saying here? That of those given to him, he should lose none of them. If we believe in Jesus, we will be saved. Nothing in this world can take us from Jesus. God has given Jesus all who will believe in him. So what other proclamations stood out to you?
Well, really, it's anything with the words I, shall, or will, or the truly, truly, or assuredly statements. Any of those could be seen as a proclamation because he's making an extreme statement of fact about something.
Mine has double quotes around everything. You can see them easy.
Right, right. Okay, since we're so full of questions,
Hey, I've been asking questions.
now I'm going to read a verse from 1 Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 11:26. If you want to turn there, you will turn to the right, probably 50 or 100 pages.
First and second Corinthians, right after Romans.
So 1 Corinthians 11, verse 26.
That's the book. 1.
Right there.
1 Corinthians 11:26.
Okay. That's chapter 16, so we just go a little farther. 11 and verse 26. So look for the little 26, somewhere in there probably.
Yeah, I was saying, sure, you sure not 23?
23. Nobody's close. Same statement. I'm just narrowing in on one part of it.
You see it? Can you see with the light? Is it?
Yeah, I can see.
Okay, have we
Would you
all
rather swap?
found
Mine's bigger print.
1 Corinthians
Okay.
11:26? Tell Zoe's got the goodest eyes.
Carol looks like she's got it already.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
So, depending on your Bible, my Bible that I'm using now is a study Bible, so it has a header over verse 23 that is reminding us that here Paul is writing about the institution of the Lord's Supper. So, which is what we're studying this week. And I'm just going to read verse 26. For as often as you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death till he comes. Okay. What was the proclamation in that verse?
Is that like communion?
That's like communion, yes. Anybody else?
He has died and will come again.
Right. So I know that some of you were not with us Sunday when we did communion. I don't have my book of worship in here with me. But there is a phrase where we announce the mystery of faith. And the mystery of faith is Christ has died, Christ is risen, Christ will come again. See, that's the mystery. So that's what Paul is saying here when he's reminding the people at Corinth how they should be doing the Lord's Supper, that every time they do that, they are proclaiming the Lord's death till he comes. So it's helping them remember what the celebration is in fact celebrating. That we not only believe that Jesus died and was resurrected, we believe he is coming again. So that's the part that we need to remember. And when we tie this to Passover, part of the Passover celebration was for the family to share the mighty works of God that they had seen through their life and through God's interaction with their people. So as we celebrate, it is a time for us to remember the mighty things God has done for us. Now, we don't usually share about things that God has done for us because our modern society does everything that it can, they can, whatever you want to describe it, to convince us that our Christian belief system is personal and private. The Bible tells us it is personal, it should never be private. Everyone should know why we believe what we believe, and they should be able to tell by the way we talk and the way we act that we are different from most people. So we, by our life, are supposed to be making proclamations about whose child we are, even if it's a proclamation of action, not of words. So if we wanted to think about something that God has done for us, or for family, or someone that we know, or a country, what would come to mind?
Said pick me. The lady at work, she's cancer free.
Yeah.
And, you know, the church has been praying for her for about the last 3 weeks.
Just this trip, how many of us had to go through that horrible rain getting here and no one had any real issues? We all got here safe and sound.
Well, and you know, I have a cousin that had a little baby that before she was born, they said that she would, if she lived to be born, she might live a minute, she might live 2. She did not have a brain, they said, and she could not live. And that baby turned 1 year old in September. And that is it's just a God thing, you know, because they tried to get the mother and daddy to agree to an abortion because they knew the baby would not live. They thought they knew the baby would not live. And the mother and daddy said, no, we're not. You know, that we're just not gonna do that. And, you know, then they said, as soon as the baby was born, they rushed the baby off, and they were afraid that the mother would not even get to hold her while she was alive. So they rushed her just so she could hold her before she died. And now she'll be 2 in September. You know, I mean, she has health issues, but she's alive.
And she still
And-
got problems, but she.
Yeah, she has problems and will always have.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're thankful that they have her.
But it's amazing, yeah.
It's definitely God.
Yes, it's impressive.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So do any other ideas come to mind?
My
Mine's sitting right over there.
Hi.
Because if it wasn't for the Lord to learn answering my family's prayer, we wouldn't have had it.
And most of the time, she thanks God for that.
Depends on which looks at it.
Sometimes she probably says, Lord, really?
Yeah.
So see, it's easy for us to look around and see God at work. And the closer we get to God, the more we will see God's works. The closer we get to God, the more we realize the places where Satan is working in this world. So we know the things to avoid as well as the things to draw near to. So as we think of a time that we should celebrate Jesus and his sacrifice for us, it is also a time for us to remember the mighty acts we've seen done in this world by God and his people. So, what else can you think of in this that stands out to you in either of the verses that we read?
When you do communion, the first thing you do is you take the loaf of bread and you break it in two. And that's symbolic of Jesus when he was being broken on the cross.
Anybody else? Anything else?
And you know, I can honestly say, I cannot tell you how long I took communion. And when you take communion with them little bitty wafers and you don't actually break a loaf of bread, to me, that takes away from what communion is. I mean, that's my personal belief anyway. But so many churches choose to do that, you know. But to me, the breaking of the bread is symbolic of that. So.
You know, it just now popped in my head. I know Zoe has. Have any of the three of y'all? Y'all have all had communion or the Lord's Supper before, right?
No.
You haven't?
I remember.
So, do you have any idea what we've been talking about, or do we need to go over it a little more?
I heard the wafers. I can't remember if we done that or not. I think we actually done the bread.
Yeah.
I was thinking
Like
Kristen
everyone
did
else.
that.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
It was
I-
wafers.
Huh?
Did we do like wafers?
No, it was like bread and grape juice.
I think Kristen, didn't you do it one Sunday with us?
Oh yes,
At
yes ma'am,
church?
I did.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking.
I was thinking of my grandfather.
Uh-huh.
If he would move around some churches,
Yeah.
I was trying to like get the memories back.
Okay, any other ideas or questions that you might have?
Even like when Jennifer with the bread, like Zoe explaining the bread, the wine is his blood. Then when you take, I mean, it all comes together.
Rewrite that and go get my book.
And I remember probably being y'all's age, and we were visiting my aunt and uncle in Indiana, and we went to church with them one Sunday, and they did the wafer and the, pass the cup, or is it not, the wafer and the juice. And I remember that pastor saying, if you're not good and all this, you're not supposed to take it and all this. And I remember being so afraid, because he said you would die, if you took it when everything wasn't right.
This is the Baptist church.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And I remember, I don't know that I've ever told this to Mama, but I remember holding that wafer in my mouth, afraid to swallow it because I was afraid I would die. And I thought, that's scary that they had us so afraid to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas, with us, everybody is free to take it.
Right. And in the Baptist church, if you're not a member of that church,
Yes.
you cannot take communion.
Right.
You know, I remember I attended the Baptist church for 20 years, so attended. I never would change my membership, but, you know, and that's what I like about the Methodist church is that it don't matter.
Yeah.
The table's open, everybody's welcome, but yeah, and I'm not sure how anybody else is, I just know how the Baptist is, but yeah.
Well, I went to the Baptist church for over a year recently, and never one time did they offer communion.
Really.
Yeah, the church that my kids go to in Warner Robins, they've never offered it.
Wow.
And when I've also heard that some of the churches only offer it once a year.
Yeah. Or some does it twice a year.
We had visited that once a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
Never
said it's
visited.
happening on that one Sunday. huh?
And see, that's one of the things they brought up, the once a year. Now, Wednesday night when we do our meal and we try to get a better feel of what's happening, we will learn that Passover is celebrated once per year. So there are those groups that say since Passover was only once per year, that we should only take communion once per year. And then there are those groups that say, well, Jesus was getting together with friends over a meal. That's communion. We're supposed to do this every time we eat bread or drink wine. So there are those that every time they gather, they have communion. Both of them are right. So it's really one of those personal preferences. I do not like to do it in a set routine. I like to do it when a message lends itself to that. There are many churches that do it every service they do. We've got friends that get together, and every time we get together with them, as the only pastor in the group, they expect me to have communion for them, and we do. So it's all in how you look at it. The way we're supposed to use this is to remind us. Now, I want us to think of things that we remember, okay? So, the example I'm going to use first is think of the mother thinking of her child. Every time that mother thinks of that child, they think good things. Now, is that child perfect all the time? So,
No.
just checking. See?
She acts like it.
But every time that mother thinks of that child, the mother only thinks good things. So when mothers are clearing out bedrooms because that child has gotten married and moved on, the mother holds this and this and this and thinks of all of the good things. The bad things don't matter. They never come into mind. Only the good things, see? So that's what Jesus is wanting the people to remember and wants us to remember as we spend this time together in God's presence. We're to remember the good things God has done for us. And through remembering the good things God has done for us, that should better motivate us to do for others. Because that's what the life we are called to do, is to do for others. Anybody else? Any other questions? Don't be bashful. Yes.
Oh, so you said Passover is like once a year. What would be like, what is the set time for Passover?
I would get it wrong if I tried to explain it, but our Easter is loosely based on Passover. Passover, again, this will not be a perfect explanation, okay? The first month of the year in the Jewish calendar is the month of Passover, where Passover takes place. And their months are established based on moon cycles. So if I tried to explain it any closer than that, I would get it wrong. But the Jewish calendar is based on moon cycles, so that puts it a little different from ours, because our calendar is based on what numbers somebody yanked out of the sky one day and said, oh, let's make this month just have 28 days. So
The Romans did that to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so just bear in mind that the Jewish calendar is different from ours, and their calendar is based so that the celebration of Passover, and I want to say that I know the first month of their year is when they celebrate Passover, but I'm wanting to say that the year starts when they celebrate Passover.
Yes.
So that being the case, see, this is their opening celebration of the year. Now, if you could look at our Christian church calendar, we have many special events also. The Israelite calendar has many festivals and such as that that they celebrated, and our Christian calendar has many celebrations. Our celebration starts with we celebrate Christmas, the coming of the promised child, the coming of Jesus. So that starts our Christian calendar. So we have the season of Advent, we have the Christmas season, then we have a time between the Christmas season and the season of Lent, which brings in Easter. Easter is our celebration that corresponds with Passover. They don't exactly correspond, but they are very close. Have you ever noticed that our Easter's on a different day every year? Sometimes our Easter is in March, sometimes our Easter is in April. So Easter moves for us based on moon cycles. So we have to look at that and recognize that just as the Hebrew festival of Passover moves, so does our Easter. And then Easter is basically the end of our Christian calendar, and then we have what we call ordinary time. There's other names that people use, but ordinary time sticks with me. And so from the end of the Easter season, which ends with Day of Pentecost, from the end of Easter season till we get to Advent is ordinary time. So we have festivals along also, just as the Hebrew people did. But we don't celebrate Easter but once a year like they celebrate Passover. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'd just like to point out that all the confusion from that comes from Jesus saying, as often as you do this,
As he's holding a
and
piece of bread.
yeah,
in
so
front of him.
as often and this, depending on what you think those words refer to, depends on how often you think you should do it.
Right. Anybody else have questions or comments?
It always should say, not just do this in remembrance of me, it should say, always do this in remembrance of me.
And see, this is what I usually read during our communion, and we will see parts of this when we do our Wednesday night gathering, but I'm going to read part of this. On the night in which he gave himself up for us, he took bread, gave thanks to you, broke the bread, gave it to his disciples, and said, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." When the supper was over, he took the cup, gave thanks to you, gave it to his disciples, and said, "Drink from this, all of you. This is my blood of the new covenant, poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. Do this as often as you drink it in remembrance of me. Now, I want us to recognize a couple of things here. One, notice each time he said, do this in remembrance of me. And then, so the first where he breaks the bread was actually about halfway through their meal. And the last, where he takes the last cup of wine, was at the end of the meal. So they're not one right after the other. They're not at the same time. It's an event that if we can measure time from the time he did the bread to the time he did the wine, it was like 20 or 30 minutes because they're having a meal. But when he comes to this cup, that's when he stops and drinks the wine. So we want to keep in mind that Jesus is speaking metaphorically. That wasn't too big a word for you, was it, Will?
I think I got it.
Okay. Jesus was speaking metaphorically when he said, this is my body. It was a piece of bread. Okay? It was a piece of bread. Then when he takes the cup of wine, again, he's speaking metaphorically. It's a cup of wine. It's not his blood. Okay? Now, there are those who believe that when you eat the bread, you're really eating Jesus' body. It's just a piece of bread, okay? They are those that believe that when you drink of the cup, you're really drinking Jesus' blood. It's just grape juice or wine, depending on where you're at, okay? But so the part to remember here, so the thing for us to remember is Jesus is reminding the disciples, hey, this is what they're about to do to me. And you're going to be part of this. It was a very popular description back in the day that if you wanted to be part of someone, you were to eat from them. We're not going to eat our friends. Right? We're not going to eat our friends. Now, I guess if we were stranded out in the ocean and one of us was going to die, maybe the other would have a pocket knife, okay? But generally speaking, we're not going to eat our friends. So all of it was to put ideas into the disciples' minds that every time they do this, they're reminded of Jesus that gave his life for them. And they're reminded that they're supposed to work as hard as he did in God's kingdom. Anybody else have ideas?
And those little things of wine can ferment too.
The big ones can too.
The little ones at church up, they can ferment. Yep, there's a story there.
Does anybody else have questions? Don't be bashful. We love questions.
If everybody at the church was 21, would you ever do communion with actual wine?
I wouldn't mind doing communion with wine every time, regardless of their age, because you don't get enough to matter.
Right.
You know, think about it. If you had the whole loaf of bread and dumped the whole loaf, you wouldn't get enough wine to get happy. So it wouldn't matter. And my thinking is that if I converted it to wine, nobody there would know but me.
But the only reason we do the grape juice is a long time ago, some people that were alcoholics or had trouble with liquor, they did that for them. So that's why we're not worried about you getting a little wine. We're worried about maybe that person might think that means it's okay or something. So we just go with grape juice and we don't have to worry.
But it has always been tradition that it was wine, because Passover, it had to be fermented beverage, which means it was wine. Okay.
But that was a health issue too.
In
Yeah, because they couldn't drink the water, back then they couldn't drink the water was
don't
not.
get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, it's explained to why they drink wine all the time.
That don't hold water.
Pardon the pun.
Right. Because, and the reason that don't hold water is there's only one city listed in scripture that did not have its own well. And they were clean wells that everyone drank out of. What was the one city?
Laodicea.
Jerusalem. Jerusalem did not have a well in the city. They had to go outside the city to get their water. Every other city in scripture, to my knowledge, was built around a good freshwater well that they could drink out of and feed their herds from. So that argument comes from one of those other denominations that we won't name here. And actually, in Methodism, before, have you ever heard of prohibition?
No.
Okay. I didn't figure you think they taught that anymore.
Oh, I know.
Way back when,
Oh wait, whenever they banned alcohol?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
it used to be
The ladies-
required in Methodism that it was wine. That was a requirement. Prohibition comes along and they said, oh, well, we can't break the law, so we're going to switch to grape juice. And then when prohibition was lifted, they left it up to whoever. Which brings us to an interesting tidbit that Tammy can't answer. The Welch's grape juice family was a United Methodist family that when prohibition came, they started making their grape juice. So when you buy Welch's grape juice or Welch's jelly, you're buying from what used to be a Methodist family that started that because of prohibition.
Wow.
See there? See how interesting life is?
But you
Okay,
didn't know. Now you do.
any other
Interesting.
questions? Any other questions?
I have a question. So why do you think that Jesus, we're going back to the water. So why do you think his choice, Lawrence's choice of drink was wine during that time if the water was so good? Because everything you read about, it never says anything about water.
Right?
It always says wine. So is that,
That's real easy for me.
okay?
Okay, I think it's also because people can't stand the taste of water.
That's
Some
a good
people,
point. That is
some
a
people
good
they
point.
need flavoring. Well, I feel like this has been all throughout times, because people usually only drink water whenever they want to be healthy. They always want flavor with stuff.
They didn't have tea or Coke, right?
Let's say it together, Pastor. The Lord gave wine to make men merry.
David tells us that in Scripture, that God gave man wine to make their heart merry.
So not stupid.
Not stupid, not anything else, merry.
But
And there's a difference, see? Now, the problem is, every one of us has different hang-ups, okay? If you want me to tell you your hang-ups, I'll talk to a couple of your neighbors, and by the end of the day, I will know many of your hang-ups. So, and alcohol, and alcohol is a big hang-up. So, you really want to know? I mean, do you really? So see, we commonly don't think of wine as many peoples or families or even regions think of wine. I remember a preacher long ago I used to listen to that was preaching in a German church, and they had a dance team that they took with them to go to this German church and perform, what do they call the dance? Where they do something special.
Ceremonial, interpretive?
Interpretive dance,
Yes.
that's correct.
Yes.
So they were going to do this interpretive dance at this German church. And the women were so offended the women of the church were so offended at the clothes that the dancers were wearing that they dropped their cigars in their beers. True story. The women in church were smoking their cigars, holding their beer, and were so offended at the dancers they dropped the cigars in the beer. When's the last time you went into a church and was smoking in the church?
Never. I'm not old enough
Never.
for that.
That's right. When's the last time you went in the church and you was drinking beer in the church?
I'm not old enough for that.
Never. See?
Good answer.
But if you go to the Carolinas where the tobacco belt is, and you're going to be a pastor of a church, you better be smoking. They won't send a non-smoking pastor to a church of smokers because that is so close-knit in their families and in their regions, see? So every region's different. Another quick example of that is Coleman, Alabama. These grown-ups should know what's different about Coleman, Alabama. When Prohibition was signed into law, there was one county in the entirety of the United States that Prohibition did not apply to. Coleman County, Alabama. Okay. Yeah,
You know that that's why.
that's
the
because they had
streets
so
are
many jobs.
wide.
Yeah,
The streets are so wide so they could get the beer wagons down the street because you stop and think, why are the streets so wide in Coleman? Well, that's
Well,
why.
it's a
Because
German,
It's a
It's
German.
German.
It's German, yeah.
and beer
it was their.
was their drink. See?
Oh, sorry. I was saying German.
So see, the things we think of as wrong, if you lit a cigar in our church, the preacher would not have to get on to you because some other little old woman would be beating you with a broom. You know this. If you popped a can of beer in our church, the same little old woman would be beating you with a broom. But there are places where that is an accepted practice. See, so we have to realize that in their regions, that was their normal, everyday practices. So we have to be careful in how we react to the way they do things. Anybody else? So we've had history lessons, we've talked about the Bible. What else we got?
Well, and I'd also hypothesize that wine, because he preached to the poor, right? That's where he went out. Well, wine was a little bit more expensive, because that's why during the wedding he had to make water into wine. That the poor people didn't necessarily have wine, which made it special.
Right.
When I was in Iraq, I went around to visit a bunch of towns. They didn't even have Kool-Aid. They had water, and it made us sick. But anyway, they had water, and that was it. There was nothing to put in it. And so I think, from the poor and that he was preaching to, the wine made it special.
And see, that's one of the things about Passover that we will get through in all of these little meetings. Passover, they were commanded to not sit at tables. They were to recline. And the reason they were to recline was that was the way royalty ate. Okay? So royalty at the time ate, reclined on their left side and ate with their right hand. So their tables were like this, if they even were served on tables. So that's another little tidbit to remember. Anybody else? Okay, one thing that we forgot to do at the beginning that we were supposed to do is what?
Bingo.
What? Bingo. Okay, so since y'all are all sitting in order, and before we quit, tomorrow morning's topic is fellowship. That is John.
1 John 1, 1 through 7. That's what I'll tell you for the reading. 1 John 1, 1 through 7.
Wednesday.
Yeah, John, you said John was.
Yeah, I'm.
Who's tomorrow morning?
No, I am. But
You
the
are.
scripture,
Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry.
yeah, his name is John. I'm saying the scripture 1 John. He's
So
yeah.
Will is doing our devotion
Yeah.
in the morning. 1 John 1.
1 through 7.
So y'all find it where y'all can read it. 1 John 1.
First John, not John, but First John.
1 John 1, 1 through 7. And then we got to play bingo.
Wait, you also need to read
Luke 15.
before tomorrow night.
Yeah, Luke 15 before tomorrow. Okay, Tammy, you can take